It's a great pleasure for me to be able to speak for such a select group of persons. I thank Coface for giving me this opportunity. I wish they were more generous in terms of time a little bit, but I'm going to stick to my 10 minutes, and I hope I will succeed in this. Now that I have discovered how the gadget works, we can proceed. Turkey is an interesting and exciting country. I'm making a very liberal definition of exciting, obviously. There are big pluses and big minuses. But if you had asked my opinion, I would have told you, to the Coface people, that they should have invited a sociologist rather than an economist to talk about the change process in Turkey. Look at this chart. In 1950, only 15% of the population of Turkey was urban, 85% rural. About 60 years later, today, in 2011, it's not on the chart, only 2010 is on the chart, but the percentage of population that is urban is now 75%. That means about 50 million people have wandered from the rural areas to the towns. And the population of Istanbul, for example, has swollen to about 17.5 million now. And we need about 5 more bridges over Bosphorus to be able to facilitate all the people who are traveling from Asia to Europe or from Europe to Asia to work, okay? But what that means is the lifestyles of people are changing dramatically. The structure of families is changing very dramatically. Women who had not been working anywhere outside the home are beginning to work, and the percentage of women participating in the labor force has gone to above 35%. So big sociological changes. The number of children are going from 5 per family to maybe 2 or 1. And so the whole lifestyle is changing. And today, approximately half of Turkish population is below 32 years of age. And that means everybody wants everything now. I don't know whether the Turkish economy can facilitate this, but we'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses in a minute. Looking at the population, end of 2011, this is a new series because there was a time when the number of subsidy from the central government to municipalities was tied to the population of the municipalities, and suddenly the population of Turkey jumped in 6 months by about 3 million people, and we had to recount the people such that all these fake increases in population could have been adjusted back. So 72 million people. Adult population between 15 and 65 is 53 million people. Labor force is 26, and employment is 23, so about 2.8 million people unemployed during this crisis. It went all the way to 3.5 million, and it came back by about 1.5 million. Okay, and the unemployed population now is about 2.8 million, and the unemployment rate is about 10.5. It had gone all the way up to 15% and came down this year. Turkey is an exciting country. This is what I call the Turkish roller coaster. You know what the roller coaster is, I know. Turkish economy measures its growth rate by comparing one quarter to the same quarter a year ago because there is a lot of seasonality in Turkey, okay? In comparison to this, Europe compares the quarter before to the quarter after. And in US, they compare quarter now against quarter following and then annualized. So growth rates quarterly are not comparable. This is first quarter last year compared to first quarter this year. And you can see the Turkish roller coaster going up and down. Big crisis in '94, another one in 2001, and another now the global crisis. We are lucky. In the first 2 of them, we were the guilty party. This time, we are not the guilty party, but we are suffering from problems of the world. Why? That I'll talk about in a minute. But this roller coaster also has a characteristic that is interesting because I'm sure you know the word Humpty Dumpty. This is a toy which falls. When you leave it on the ground, it gets up, okay? Humpty Dumpty in English, I don't know the French. The Turkish economy cannot stay in a crisis longer than 4 to 5 periods. Look at each of these collapses, 94, 2001, and 2008. You can see 5 quarters down, 5 quarters up. Oh la la, we are going with 10% growth. Okay? This is actually what happened also this time. If you look at the quarterly rates after the 2009 collapse. By the way, Turkey collapsed in 2009 by minus 4.7%, which is exactly equal to the decline rate of Germany on that year. Okay? So there must be some similarity between Germany and Turkey, which I'll mention in a minute. Okay? Turkey is transforming rapidly. The red line is agriculture, the blue line is services. You can see people are getting out of agriculture and moving into services. Tourism is a big activity, retail trade is a big activity, transportation is a big activity they're moving into. Agriculture's share in output went from more than 40–50% historically, now to less than 10%. And employment in agriculture, which used to be very large, it used to be 80% some time ago, it is now down to less than 20%, okay? So huge transformation in Turkey. We have an industrial sector that is approximately producing 20–25% of output. Here's a chart of the industrial sector in terms of capacity utilization and industrial production during the 2008 crisis. You can see up to 2010 end, Turkey industrial production grew. 80% of industrial output is industrial and semi-industrial commodities, not heavy industry, but light industry. And 80% of the exports is industrial goods. And more than half of it is produced by small and medium enterprises, beginning with textiles, which we pretty much adapted from Italian way of producing semi-industrial goods. But now you can see there was a period of decline in industrial output in 2011. This was on purpose because the current account was becoming very large. And now, after the USA rating was downgraded in August, and problems arose in Europe, to which we are approximately exporting about 50% of our output. Then again, we try to boost our growth and heavy emphasis on industry. You can see there is now growth in industry again. Okay. Now, this is Turkish inflation. I'm born in 1942. You can see there is a very strong correlation between my birth and the inflation rates in Turkey, which went to 100%. And then there was a period of lower inflation, but after 1970, the petroleum crisis time, Turkish inflation went up to 120% and forced Turkey to switch to an export-oriented strategy in 1980–81. Initially, we supported the export boom with high devaluation, which put inflation one more time up. And then in 1994, we created our first big crisis ourselves, where inflation went to 150. And since then, Turkey has been trying to reduce inflation, including the 2001 crisis, in which the inflation only went up to 90%. And in the last couple of years, Turkish inflation was below double digits. It was fluctuating between 5 and 9%. But now, given the recent troubles in the Eurozone and changes between the euro exchange rate and the dollar, in the last couple of months, inflation went up to 10% and is expected to come down a little bit further. So there is a success story in terms of reducing inflation over a period of 15–20 years in Turkey. Okay? Now, I'm coming to the public finance. This is a soft issue around the world, and specifically in Europe. If you look at this third column, the third column is total government budget deficit, and the fourth column is the public sector debt stock. Turkey started in 1994 with 41%. By 2001, Turkish budget deficit was about 12%, which is similar to Greece today. And the debt ratio was about 78, which is more like England today. So Turkey was in problem when the whole world was not in problem in 2001. And this is an area now in which Turkey can be considered as an economic model. It took Turkey about 5 years to reduce from 12% the budget deficit to approximately 0% in 2001. This is a real success story, and obviously people had to pay a lot of taxes and a lot of privatizations had to be undertaken. The debt ratio declined also to 40% in 2008 when the crisis started just before Lehman. Turkish debt ratio was 42.9%. It went slightly up to 48% for a short time period. And in 2010, it is 45%. This year will be closing, when December statistics are out, between 3 to 1%, and it will probably materialize at 1% in the first couple of months of 2012. So, big success story in Turkey in terms of reducing budget deficit and debt ratio. This could be a good model for Greece, Portugal, Spain, which have similar problems. If the people are durable, seemingly Turkish citizens are relatively more durable against big tax increases and austerity measures. I can tell you, not many people complain about these austerity approaches in Turkey, and now obviously we are collecting benefits from it, okay? Here you can see with the red line the increase in the budget deficit per GDP in 2008, and then a decline to less than 3%. Let me add also, in Turkey, the social security deficit is a big number. Turkey has two big problems. One is the energy problem. We import almost 100% of energy to the tune of about $50 billion a year, and that makes up about 70% of current account deficit. And we have also a social security problem. You should be moving to Turkey. The retirement age on average is 46, and life expectancy is 77, and so you would have 31 years of retirement in Turkey, okay? I strongly recommend. I'm not lucky, I retired only at age 67.
And that will be the final slide,
no,
unfortunately.
Two more charts I'm going to show, and
okay, we'll
shut up,
up,
okay? Okay. Well, you give a great benefit to politicians and very little to academicians, huh? Okay. FX reserves in Turkey. They are at $90 billion level. Turkey switched to an inflation targeting policy, focusing on monetary policy and interest rates as a tool, allowing the exchange rates to fluctuate. $90 billion for exchange reserves. They went down by 10 billion, 12 billion in the last turbulence around the euro. Okay, but strong reserve structure. Turkey fixed the banks. You can see in 2001 crisis, the total bad loans, it says past due, but that's bad loans, were 45% of all loans, now below 5% in this crisis. And Turkey had to adopt different policies when there was, after American quantitative easing, a lot of inflow of hot money into Turkey. Turkey started to adopt what is now called around Europe macroprudential policies, because one bank can be very safe, all banks can have very safe balance sheets, yes, yet the system of banks can have disaster. Turkey last year had the highest growth rate of credit around the world, 35%, while the economy was growing at 8%, and the result of that was this. Last chart, a large current account deficit, which to a dramatic extent was financed by hot money. But if you look at the red bars, it is clear here that starting 2011 beginning, long-term finance is moving into Turkey. So we are waiting that Turkish current account recovers before Europe has recession problems, because we are exporting to Europe, okay? This is the economic picture, and on the later part of the discussion, I'll talk about maybe we can be an economic model. Can we be a political model too? That we'll discuss.